Welcome back to another Q&A, questions and alcohol. This week I've got the questions, and we are joined by two great guests that'll be talking a little bit about the alcohol side of things, or at least how their partnership works. We're joined by Jake Rouse, co-founder and CEO of Braxton Brewing. Jake, welcome in.
Hey, thanks for having me.
And we also have Tim Philpott, VP of Marketing for Graeters Ice Cream.
Good afternoon.
Well, Tim and Jake, I appreciate you guys hopping on because I feel like this is an interesting project that you guys ended up working on. And I guess we'll just start with that. The partnership between Graeters and Braxton, not just only for this one that we're going to talk about on the Smoothie Seltzer, but also you guys have beers together and so forth. How did all this come together? I mean, for those that don't know, Braxton's in Northern Kentucky with location now in Cincinnati, and Graeters obviously kind of home is Cincinnati. So, but still, that doesn't always mean the partnerships make sense.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I appreciate it. You know, the story of the partnership has been ongoing now it's coming up on 5 years, I think.
Yeah, maybe was 5 years. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, we should have made a bigger deal about that.
Yeah.
It really happened organically out of a passion for beer and ice cream, to be honest. You know, when my brother and I started Braxton now 7 years ago in March, I had told him before we ever launched that if we ever had the opportunity to create any flavor of beer with an iconic Cincinnati brand, it had to be Graeter's Black Raspberry Chip. And a mutual friend of Rich Graeter and myself had, you know, this was 1 year into us being open. I think at the time, the trend was that beer flavored ice cream was kind of doing something, and Rich was somewhat interested in that. And they were visiting the Braxton tap room, and he introduced us, and we got to tour the plant up in Cincinnati. And I gotta say, it's like Disney World for ice cream. It's unbelievable. And when we sat down in the office to talk about making a beer flavored ice cream, we just asked, look, even if it's just for the 5 of us in this room, can we create Black Raspberry Chip beer just to see what it tastes like? And we launched it, and we tasted it, and we all agreed that the flavor was just too good to not exist in the world. And so for the past 5 years, we've been iterating on different flavors of beers and ice cream flavored beers. And we knew, and we're here to talk about today, the Smoothie Seltzers. We knew that we wanted to create something that lends itself more towards kind of the flavor profile and indulgence that you would expect out of a Graeter's product, because no matter how much lactose or adjunct I add to a beer is still always going to be bitter, right? And we've created some pretty fantastic products over the years, but we wanted something that could really kind of live up to that Graeter's expectation. And, you know, back in 2019, we kind of forayed ourselves into the ability and created the technology for our neutral grain spirit Vive, and created a hard seltzer line. And that's kind of when it started. Evan started playing with, you know, what could we create that's really unique when it comes to hard seltzer and the Graeter's family.
And Tim, why were you guys so willing to kind of jump onto something like this? It's one thing to partner with someone that's similar to you guys, but obviously Braxton being an alcohol company, some people could look at that sideways. I don't, but I mean, others could. So why the partnership from your end?
You know, I think, well, first and foremost, I mean, Graeters is a family company in Cincinnati. And I think one of the things that, and has been for 150 years, I think one of the things that Richard Graeter, when he met Jake and Evan, that appealed was like, hey, here's a couple of brothers starting a family company, and that's interesting. And you know, we don't find ourselves partnering with big brands. I mean, they don't have the time for us, and it's not as worthwhile, as mutually worthwhile. And so, you know, the craft beer movement, or whatever we want to call it, the phenomenon is that target demographic for Graeters isn't the highest for us. So we're a family brand, but we lose members of the family when they get out of college and they go off and they're buying their own pint, you know, they're pursuing their own dreams, and then they come back when they have children. And so I think Richard, and when we started talking about it, we thought, hey, this is an interesting brand face to that Gen Y, Gen Z, you know, that younger generation that was really paying attention to flavors, and our stories were just so similar. This family company handcrafting flavors, like everything but the alcohol was very similar to the story. And so, you know, I tell Jake all the time, I'm not I'm not smart enough to do huge things. I got to find interesting, fun things. And partnering with Jake and his brother and the folks at Braxton seemed fun. And so again, I'm up for anything. We're up for anything. So we just, I think, mutually leaned into it and said, hey, what's possible here? And I think we had a epiphany on that launch date, which could have been 5 years ago exactly today. It was right. It was the first week.
It was close. Yeah, it might be.
And it set the world on fire as it picking up on that trend, that alcohol, ice cream, alcohol. And so we've gone back and forth over the years. And as Jake said, we've done a lot of variants and some flavors with them. We had a stout and pretzels ice cream that we rolled out based on their Dead Blow tropical stout a few years ago. And so we're, you know, this next stage of the partnership really is probably the closest thing to bring us into our world. As Jake said, we're a family brand, but we're not an alcohol brand, and all the licensings and the things that exist in Jake's world around that just don't exist for us. So this opportunity we'll probably talk a little bit more about today really is the first time we're getting closer to what we do. Other than that little foray into ice cream, now we're starting to get things that are more indulgent, more sweet, more akin to things you might find on our menu. And so that's exciting.
Yeah. And Jake, I was going to say, you know, you guys did the beers with Graeters for a good while, but now it's seltzers and a smoothie seltzer at that. Why was that the next logical step in the partnership?
It's all about being able to create an alcoholic beverage that doesn't need to be rooted in bitterness, right? You don't really drink or eat rather bitter ice cream. He said, I don't think that would work. And Tim, maybe you should give that a shot, just see what customers think. But it's typically sweet and indulgent and in your face with flavor. And so if you think about the composition of a beer, obviously beer is 4 ingredients: water, yeast, malt, and hops. And you've got to use hops in some way, shape, or form, or else the beer doesn't ferment appropriately. And hops is what brings the bittering characteristic. So when you think about the technology we were able to create with our Vive line, you know, we were doing virtually the exact opposite. We were creating a neutral grain spirit that was odorless, colorless, and flavorless. And what that gives you the ability to do is build anything upon it that you want to have taste like alcohol. So we went to work on a lot of different things. I mean, we tried internal things that included dairy and did all this other stuff. And it's like, it just didn't work the right way, and then opened us up to all kinds of different regulations for the site if you're doing live dairy. And we landed on the Smoothie Seltzer because what it's done is, and as I mentioned, I'm happy to send you some samples. We'll make sure you get some down to you, but it's the most innovative liquid we've ever done. It drinks out of a 12-ounce slim can like a smoothie, as thick as you would imagine going to Smoothie King or a Graeter's scoop shop and getting blended fruit. It is that thick, but with the effervescence of carbonation and 5% alcohol. And we worked really hard with Bob Graeter, who is kind of the pioneer of flavors over at Graeters, to mimic the 2 flavors that they have on their menu for smoothies, which are Sunrise Sensation and Island Blast. And they launched in a very limited manner in November, and we got a lot of really great feedback from them. And they're going to launch in a very big way next month, and they'll be on the shelf every day.
That is awesome to hear. And you kind of touched on this too. To me, y'all were kind of, I feel like, an early adapter into the seltzer world, with it also being a craft beer. You know, because Vive's been around for a while. Like, even I remember seeing it before I really saw the explosion of, you know, 500 different seltzers on a craft beer store's wall. But what did you see with that? Like, I mean, obviously someone there saw something and made the correct bet on it. What did you guys see that seltzer was kind of coming this way?
Yeah, it's really interesting how that world has morphed, because we'll enter this calendar year with 1 SKU of Vive total. And it's kind of interesting to think about the evolution and product life cycle in that category. What it really came down to, and we actually came from an innovation meeting. We had a pretty lengthy innovation meeting yesterday planning our 2023. And what it really came down to was this. It's that at the end of the day, customers in general are doing three things. Number one, they're drinking less. Number two, they're trying to be healthier, myself included. I mean, you started the call with saying you were just doing dry January. Mm-hmm. I was reading some insider trade regs yesterday that had said that this dry January, they estimated to be 1 in 4 consumers were trying dry January. That 5 years ago was maybe 1 in 15 or 1 in 10. And obviously we feel it, right? We own 4 on-premise establishments, and we see that reality. And we know, like myself, I'm going through a massive transformation of trying to lose a bunch of weight, and that doesn't lend itself to opening up a ton of IPAs. And so those two things are happening alongside of the fact that the generation beneath us, I assume we're probably pretty close to age, the ones that are just coming of age to drink are not drinking at all. They've completely cut alcohol out of their lives. And so you start to read those things and understand that there's always been occasions in beer, and everybody wants, how can I win the occasion? How can I win the concert, the sporting event, the whatever? We kind of stepped back and made the assessment that need state is always going to trump occasion. So while I'm going to a concert, if I'm trying to lose weight and trying to be healthier, we need to create beverages that allow me to be social and enjoy alcohol, but aren't, 45 carbs and 300 calories a can. Now, that being said, there's a time and place for everything. And what you'll find with these smoothie seltzers is they are exactly as described. They're indulgent. We put the nutritional information on the can, and it is high calories, high carbs, because it's fruit, carbonation, and alcohol. And so for us, it was, how do we flex a little bit into being able to do innovative products that are not just beer? And then how do we kind of fulfill a portfolio that allows us to, what I believe will future-proof the company?
And then Tim, this one could be for you too, because this is a partnership, a collaboration. I mean, how much collaboration goes into stuff like this between the two companies? Because obviously, if Graeters is going to have their name on it, they want it to, 1, be good, and 2, probably if it's something they have, taste very similar, so people are expecting the same thing, and that works for Braxton as well. So how much work goes into these types of products?
I think it truly is a collaboration or a partnership. As Jake said, his brother Evan talks with Bob Graeter they talk about things I don't understand as it relates to flavor and citric acid and overtones and undertones, and so they really connect as they're in the development stage, and then they'll bring stuff over in kind of unmarked cans, and we're pouring things out around the table with the Graeter family, just trying things, because they're very concerned that products that bear the brand live up to that level of quality, handcraftedness, and in this case, indulgence. And that's maybe why the smoothie seltzers are increasingly interesting. Is that's now another attribute we're bringing to the table of indulgence, because just as I think the whole craft brewing segment is not about volume drinking as much. There's volume drinkers, certainly, but it's about appreciating what you drink. And that's kind of what Graeters is about with ice cream. It's not about how fast can you eat a pint, how much can you eat a pint. We don't make pints with 200 calories in a pint so that you eat a lot of it. It's indulgent. And so I think when Jake and I talk, and text a lot, it's a very open dialogue between the two companies, but we have reached a point where we know that we don't know alcohol, and we know that we don't know really a lot about the alcohol market or the tap room market. And so there's a trust that's been built between Jake and his family and the Graeter family that, hey, we share the same values, we share the same interests, and there's a trust. And so I would say, we have a lot less back and forth than we did in the early days. And now it's like, I think we know where each other are. And when very rarely does Jake ask me a question that he doesn't know the answer to, and vice versa. And I think that's good partners, right? I think we strive in anything, whether it's with Braxton or with the Zoo or the Reds or whatever, to be a good partner. And this is certainly and Jake and I have talked from a stage about our partnership and how well it works, just because it is this built on a shared value of high quality, handcrafted family. Your family's name is on it in some respects. And we like that. And there's bigger things to come, I think, in the collaboration world between our brands. So
I agree.
A lot of things going on.
Well, I like that, and you also touched on this too, where when they just bring over the unmarked cans. I'm sure, are those some of the good days around the office when you guys get to do a few of the taste tests?
It is. And I was sitting at lunch the other day, and somebody popped out a Vive, and we were just sitting around eating lunch, and it was and everybody kind of stopped and looked, and then we went about our business. It wasn't, like if a Vive appeared at your corporate office lunchroom, it might stop the conversation a little more. But no, it is nice. I mean, we're very fortunate. I used to work above the bakery on Reading Road, and having ice cream and bakery is a double-edged sword within arm's reach. And so adding alcohol to the mix, and we shouldn't have trouble hiring anybody, right? I mean, we should be able to
just get it set up so there's a nice little fridge fully stocked for everyone, and they'll be good to go. Now, Jake, I think you talked about this. Obviously, the initial launch was a success, so I'm assuming Smoothie Seltzers are here to stick around.
They are, yeah, and we're really fortunate. We've got the partnership of some really big retailers that believe in the product as well. So we've got some things up our sleeves. We're going to be launching them in a big way in the next, I'd say, 4 or 5 weeks. They'll be available all throughout the state of Kentucky and Cincinnati and Dayton. So all of Lexington and Louisville Kroger stores will be carrying the product, as well as independent retailers. And we're really excited about the ability to merchandise inside of scoop shops. We're not going to, we've had this conversation before, and it's a conversation we broach a lot. It doesn't make sense for the Graeters family brand to serve alcohol in their ice cream stores, but we actually now have the ability through e-commerce to allow for that purchase to take place in those stores, and then us deliver it to their houses. So we're going to be working through that go-to-market as well. And it should just give us a really great opportunity to, get people to try it. Like I said, it's super unique. The liquid it's hard for me to describe, but actually it's funny. One of our marketers came up with the kind of the tagline of like, oh, I forgot what it's called, but it's basically like, it's exactly as it sounds, and yet still mind blowing. Like, it is a smoothie seltzer, which you think about it, like that doesn't add up. When you try it, you're like, oh, wow, this is actually really good.
Yeah.
Well, and Jake, you guys have been doing a lot of different stuff too. I know Braxton Labs has come home, so to speak. You guys previously bought a tap room in Cincinnati. So what changes are going on around your neck of the woods?
Yeah, we've got a lot of stuff in the works. We had to take a step back and look across the entire portfolio of brands to say, in this new world where there are now 500 different seltzer brands on the shelf, and you're no longer just competing with big beer. You're now competing with big beer and big soda and big liquor and big restaurant chain and big celebrity chef. Everyone has a seltzer. And so we had to take a step back and really look at like, where does Braxton fit? Where does Vive fit? And where does it belong on the shelf if we're going to throw our resources against it? And one of the big things was we knew that innovation was key to overall growth, specifically beer innovation. We've got an amazing brewer over there in Zach Banky. He does some things with beer that I didn't even think were possible. And for years, he's been begging us for new equipment. I mean, he's spit out, the source of innovation for our 4 tap rooms at the time, off of, in essence, equipment that was an old distillery converted into a brewery. It wasn't efficient, didn't really work. And so when we had the opportunity to expand into Braxton, Cincinnati at the end of 2020, we really knew that the long-term plan was to move Braxton Labs production there. It had a gorgeous brewery. Everything was significantly better. And so production has moved, but that neighborhood didn't make a ton of sense to take that themed, craft-centric, experience to. So we let the taproom experience die, but live on through e-commerce and activations. We actually just launched our first release last weekend with a Girl Scout cookie pairing that was a ton of fun. And next week we're doing one that is lemon bar dessert Berliner Weiss. And so we've got a pop-up bakery shop, and there's a lot of stuff that's happening. So as we look to the future, we're thinking really, really hard about direct to consumer and how can we do more, physical locations regionally, and how can we grow in a way that allows us to own the relationship with the end consumer, because more and more and more the lines are getting blurred between beer and seltzer and spirits. That is, I won't say confusing the customer, but creating so many choices when it comes to alcohol beverage on the shelf at a very similar price point that it's like, we believe in our brand equity and we know we win in certain locales, but I don't necessarily know if we're going to be going all in on seltzer across the nation or all in on a specific beer in a big regional presence, because it just doesn't make a ton of sense for us.
And then, this partnership has grown over the 5 years. So is the partnership going to continue to grow, and more products from both sides going to be able to come out? What do we got here? Because I feel like this is for both of you on this one.
Well,
what you're allowed to tell me on the record.
Well, yeah, I'd be a terrible prisoner of war because I would spill the whole beans. But I think absolutely more to come. I mean, I see stuff coming out of Braxton Labs or stuff, and I'm like, hey, that sounds like an ice cream flavor. What the hell? Like, maybe our name should be on that. Let's work together on that. So I think we're constantly looking for there's opportunities to mutually partner, and within our own bandwidths. They're their brand, we're our brand, and we have a lot going on our own. But I would say we are constantly looking for the opportunity, and I have a willing set of family members on my side that like it and like to find new ways. And like I said, Jake and I both know, some of the things that are on the table, but we'll see how they all manifest over the next couple of years. But yes, I guess that's the long-winded yes, there's a lot to come still.
So many different things we can explore, right? And it's so much fun. I mean, at the end of the day, Tim and I joke a lot. Like we like to do fun things. That's what it's all about. Like, this is not rocket science. It's beer and ice cream, and those things together are just a really great escape from reality. And it's really, really fun to be able to deliver that.
Well, and like I said, so far so good on everything that I've been able to try, and it's cool to see two local brands come together. I liken this maybe to the smaller scale Hershey and Yingling partnership that they've got over there on a little bit bigger scale. But it's cool to see two family businesses work together in an area and have some great products. Folks, if you haven't, check out Braxton's, check out Graeters. You can find more on their websites. Social media. They're pretty much in almost any store you can find around here in Kentucky and obviously greater Cincinnati. Anything else I should say before I let you guys go?
The only thing I'll say is that we actually, on top of Smoothie Seltzer, it's coming out in a big way in 5 weeks. Yesterday, we announced the return of Black Raspberry Chip, which was the beer that started it all. So that's available on our website, and we're launching it this Saturday in tap room. Tim and I will be down there with a Sunday bar and just hanging out. So be on the lookout for more fun stuff. And I appreciate you having us on.
Yeah. Tim, Jake, this has been a pleasure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.